I would love for Bentonville to be able to become, one of those small little like aviation, tech hubs.
Right.
And if I can play a small role in that when looking back in 20 years or something like that, that'd make me happy. That'd be great.
This is the Startup Junkies podcast. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Startup Junkies podcast. Thank you for tuning in wherever and however you're tuning in from. My name is Daniel Koonce, and it's a rare episode today because I'm the only host on the Startup Junkie team. But it's also a rare episode because we have an awesome entrepreneur, my new friend, the founder and CEO of the flying company, Tyler Flagg. Tyler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Finally, we have a sunny day in Fayetteville.
Yes, it is nice.
It took us all of 6 days, but we're back.
Yep.
So thank you for joining. Tell us a little bit about the Tyler Flagg origin story. If you were a comic book character, how would it start?
Oh, gosh. So I was a failed child actor. Actually, that's the thing that most people don't know about me. I grew up right outside Manhattan, came from a family of actors, zero ties to aviation or the military or anything like that. But did that a little bit when I was a kid. And then after September 11th, decided I was going to join the military. I wanted to enlist in the Marines. My mom asked that I not do that, and I, go to college and go in as an officer. And so ended up doing Air Force ROTC, spent then about 14 years in the Air Force as a pilot.
Yep. I mean, failed child actor, is that really a failure? Because you see a lot of these child actors nowadays, when they get to be adults, I doubt many are as successful as you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. No, I mean, it's impossible to know what would have happened, if I had just gotten that big break.
Yeah, that one Doritos commercial or whatever.
But no, I'm not complaining. I'm pretty content.
Yeah. So you joined the Air Force. Afterwards, you eventually started the flying company. Tell us a little bit about that start, and also tell us about the company. What is it?
Going back to the Air Force. So I was in Air Force Special Operations for about 14 years. Most of the time I was flying, held a lot of different roles. I was obviously pilot, instructor pilot, evaluator pilot. At times I was like the chief of training or the chief of safety for the squadron, and deployed squadron commander, deployed 6 times, flew operationally in about 67 different countries. And so, I had a lot of experience managing planes, right? But managing planes in the military and managing planes in the private sector are two completely different things, which I found out when I started managing a plane in the private sector. And so I got out, almost 5 years ago now. Got a job managing a business jet in Bentonville. And so I was the chief pilot. So not only was I flying, but I also had to do all the back office stuff, which in the military, you don't have to worry about insurance and taxes and a budget and stuff like that, right?
Right.
And so, very quickly, fire hose kind of thing, like had to figure all that stuff out and, learn from really smart people who know how to do all that kind of stuff. And so I was able to pretty quickly get, most of the things sorted out and built the system. And so it was run real well. The thing that kind of continued being a very obnoxious pain point for me was finding other pilots to fly like in my place or fly with me. And it was insane to me when I asked around. I'm like, hey, like I need to find somebody to fly with me, like in a week or something like that. And people would suggest that I needed to post in a Facebook group. The idea of finding pilots on a Facebook group was just absolutely insane, right?
Yeah.
And I also didn't even have a Facebook account.
Anybody want to fly with me on Wednesday?
Yeah, I deleted mine like 10 years ago or something like that. And I was like, I don't want to create a Facebook account, like just to be able to find pilots. And so, not only would you have to like find them there, but then you have to go through this very, extensive process of actually like vetting them, right? Like you can't just handshake deal, right? Like you got to
let's fly. Let's go.
Exactly, right? You could do that. Like it would be the safest way to do it.
Right.
But you got to get their certificates and their ratings and their type ratings and their medical information and, photographs of all this stuff and like training certificates and diplomas. And then you've got to share a bunch of information with them about the plane and the operation and the trip and the itinerary and passengers and everything. everything. And then you've got to sign a pilot services agreement with them, and you've got to get them approved by insurance. And then you've got to loop them in with the accountants to be able to like make sure they get paid. And it was the kind of thing that it would take me like a whole week.
A seamless, easy process, right?
Exactly, right. It would take me like a whole week leading up to a trip just to like get everything
just to get somebody to go on the trip
in
with
order,
you.
right? And then, the next week I'd have to do it again. And so, put out in the world like a very simple alpha version of, what the platform has become. Sent it out to a bunch of buddies of mine who were flying the same plane as me, and sent it out to some operators who are operating the same plane as me, who I'd flown with before, and just kind of sat back and watched what happened. Learned a lot from that experience and just kind of kept iterating on the platform and trying to make it better and trying to make it more valuable. Initially, because with marketplaces, right, you have to start somewhere small, right? You have to start in a very small niche, like Airbnb, Uber, like they just started with, San Francisco or whatever, right?
Yeah.
In planes, you can't really do that. You can't like geographically limit yourself. So I limited it by model. And so just like one model of aircraft is what I supported. Then added on another model. And then now just within the last like month or so, we're now supporting like 30 different models of planes. And so like we went from Plautus, which is a Swiss manufacturer of aircraft that essentially has like 2 models of planes. And now we're supporting Citation jets, which Citation is the brand under Textron, big American company out there in Wichita. And so now we're supporting all those types of aircraft. And so the way that essentially works is like, I describe it like care.com, but instead of finding childcare, you're finding pilots.
Pilots, yeah.
Which you could kind of consider childcare to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And so, if you're an operator, if you're, an aircraft owner, you're a management company, you're a corporate flight department, you create an account for free. You can build your fleet of all the information about, all your planes. You create a trip that gets sent out to all the pilots on the platform. Pilots can then provide a quote for their services, right? And then, based on those quotes that you get in the door, we have a dashboard that helps you like actually properly assess these pilots with the information all in one spot. So in one screen, you can see all the different, 10 pilots or whatever who provided a quote for their services for that specific trip. You can see their certificates and their ratings and their type ratings. You can validate it against the FAA. You can send them messages back and forth. You can see all their hours, whether they're compliant with your insurance policy or not. You can see their quotes in a standardized format. And then when it's time to hire, you just click hire, sign a pilot services agreement with them. The pilot gets paid via Stripe. You get matching invoices. We do 1099s at the end of the year for them. And so, again, just trying to kind of make a one-stop shop to simplify an otherwise very obnoxious process.
Right. So you took this process that probably took, I assume, 6, 7, 8 hours a week. How long does it take now to find a pilot?
Yes.
Typically.
Yeah. So what we've found we started out with just owner-operators. An owner-operator would be like a lawyer with a plane or a construction company that has one plane. Now we're moving into like aircraft management companies. And so aircraft management companies, can partner with us, and then we kind of onboard their whole fleet and get their schedulers and dispatchers trained up on how to use it and everything. And we found that we can save about 5 hours of touch time for every time they need to bring a pilot into the organization. And then a couple days of like cycle time. So instead of it taking 4 days for you to actually finally get like a butt assigned to the seat, right? You can do that in 6 hours, 12 hours. It all just kind of depends on how quickly your dispatcher wants to get back into the system after creating a trip and then, see all the pilots. And so, a significant amount of touch time savings, cycle time savings, and then monetary savings compared to going to staffing firms that charge like a 40% markup. We can reduce that by about 75%.
So you're saving time, saving money, saving just the whole hassle, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that is
for literally, it sounds like literally everyone involved, for even the pilots.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. And like the pilots also like it too, because, pilots, especially if you're like a freelance pilot, let's call it like that, like in the industry, they call it contract pilots, but it's essentially a freelancer, right? When I first started doing this, before I even like expended any effort, on it, I obviously want to make sure it was a real problem. And so, essentially did a sample study of like reaching out to a ton of people who I knew that were doing contract work. And I just like asked them like point blank, like, what's the worst part about being a contract pilot? And I was kind of expecting to get like crickets, but I ended up getting people like emailing me back, writing an essay.
They're like, there's a
about
lot.
Like,
yeah.
Here,
I can only
here's
pick one
all
thing.
the things that I hate about doing this. And, you know, them like I would say, like, if you were to kind of bunch it all together, you would say that, like, one, it's like sharing of information, right? A lot of them, they're kind of going into an unknown, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't know much about the operator. They don't know much about the plane. They don't know much about the trip, right? And they just kind of have to like figure it out as they go along, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is obviously not an ideal situation, right?
Right?
So being able to share as much information with the pilot as we can so that they can operate the plane and the mission effectively is part of the goal. But also payment, right? Like if you're a freelance pilot who's coming into an organization to just fly for like 3 days or something like that, after you get done, you put together all your expenses and you send it to like some, accounting inbox or something like that. They might not get to it and pay you for like 30, 45, 60 days, right? It just kind of depends on the accounting cycle. And also, like once you're done flying for them, well, now they're on to worrying about the next trip that they have that they need to staff, right? And so like getting you paid out is like not their number one priority, right?
And I imagine they're slightly larger paychecks than usual.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like the pilots get paid by the day, right? So whether or not you're flying, 30 minutes, you're flying 10 hours or something like that, you're getting paid by a day rate. And it can be substantial, right? And like these pilots, like a lot of the times they have to float their own like travel costs. Like if you need to airline somewhere, stay at hotels, like you're eating that until you get, reimbursed for everything. And so, with Stripe, they make it super easy. And so the pilot gets paid out in like 3 business days or whatever.
Wow.
Like, so yeah, so there's a lot of goodness to kind of, gain on both sides.
Yeah. Seems like a great like one-stop shop for everything flying related.
That's the plan.
Yeah. So when was the official launch date? How long you guys been in business?
So March of 23, I think is when.
March of 23. Okay. So you're coming up on 3 years here soon.
You're better math than I am. Yeah, I think that sounds right. Yeah.
So next year's 2026. Yeah. Yes, about 3 years.
Yeah,
2.5 right now.
Yeah, so for about 2 years of it was very much like a side project. I was just bootstrapping it and just kind of messing with it from time to time. But within the last 6 months to a year, like it's been more like a real. Yeah, more like a real business.
It's like this could be my thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you have a specific aha moment? Like when did you realize, no, this could be a lot more than just a side hustle?
Yeah. So I would probably say about a year ago. So I don't. Again, I'd kind of been focusing on smaller planes, owner operators. Someone who is, running their own business. They've got a plane for the purpose of that business. They're managing it themselves. This is like a time savings for them, right? Mm-hmm. I had always kind of assumed that larger management companies, like professional management companies, they're managing, 50, 100, 300 planes. I'd kind of assumed that they already had everything
in place.
Figured out,
right?
I was like, oh yeah, well they've got like a deep bench of pilots, and they probably already have like some notification, systems and payroll worked out and everything. And turns out that was not the case.
That's not the case at all.
I had someone reaching out to me who was managing some planes, and was like, oh, this is awesome, man! Like you thought everything, like great work, nicely done. I was like, oh, thank you so much. And he's like, man, I really wish I had this when I was working for XYZ, like really large management company. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, you guys didn't have something better? You don't
this?
have something better than this? Like I figured that would have been something they'd already gotten sorted out. And he's like, oh, no. Like he was like, I was given a list of 2 pilots to call on. And when they weren't available, I had to go figure it out myself. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting,
Maybe I could do it.
Yeah. And so that has kind of started this, journey of like now, like, going out to those like Fortune 500 flight departments and those large management companies and kind of offering this as a solution for them.
Yeah. So is this what you're doing full time now?
It is. Yeah.
All right. Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Are you an entrepreneur or an aspiring entrepreneur looking to get plugged into the ecosystem? We host a ton of events designed for education, inspiration, and collaboration, from weekly meetups to quarterly events like pitch competitions and annual events like our marquee event, the Startup Crawl, which is the largest startup party in Arkansas. Check out our event page on our website, sign up, and we'll see you there.
there are any like business owners who are listening, like they'll tell you, resilience, grit, like hard work, like those are all kind of things you need if you want your business to succeed. Have there been any habits or philosophies you've taken from the military? What have you kept with you?
Yeah. So one of my, my favorite squadron commander was my very first squadron commander. Really good dude, respected him a lot, and everybody did. One of the things that he always used to remind us, because I was fresh out of pilot training, right into a special operations unit. We were all kind of figuring things out. Like it was a very young squadron, and he always used to tell us like, just because your patch says special on your shoulder, you're not special. Just like keep your head down, be a quiet professional, keep doing your job, keep doing your work, and that's kind of like what I've just kept trying to do, right? Like,
right.
I'm guess I'm stubborn enough that I'm just going to keep working at this until it works,
Yeah.
I think that's all you can really do.
Yeah. You're not getting a big head, big ego or anything. Cause what you said, it sounds like you're doing really great work, but you're just every day you're going to it, going after it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just kind of need to, right. And
right.
Like, I wouldn't say that like we've hit product market fit yet, right? Like we're still in the, like, there's a lot of really good things going for us right now, but we just need to keep working on it, right?
Yeah.
And keep focusing and keep moving in that direction,
Those things aren't just going to happen.
No, exactly, right? And, I still don't know. I don't know exactly what product market fit like is going to look like for this. Like, what's the, it's like, it's kind of like pornography, right? Like the definition of pornography is like, it when you see it, right? I feel like that's kind of probably the same with like product market fit. Like, I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but when like we actually do hit it, I'll know.
You'll be like,
okay, right? It's
here.
working, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's go. No.
So the flying company, it's headquartered in Bentonville, correct?
Correct.
In Bentonville, it's not necessarily known as a tech aviation hub. What was the decision to bring it here, and what advantages/disadvantages have you seen from it being in Northwest Arkansas?
Yeah. So most people do not think of Bentonville as a aviation
I said most people,
hub, right?
I do not consider it. So
No, exactly. And it is not by any stretch of the imagination, right? Like you have really large aviation presences in like the Melbourne like coast of like Florida. You've got a lot out in Los Angeles. You've got some in the middle of the country in like Wichita because of Cessna and Textron and everything like that. But yeah, no, it's definitely outside of game aerospace. It's like right there at the Bentonville Municipal Airport that makes the Game Bird. That's like the main aviation kind of thing here. But I, moved to Bentonville before this, like I just moved to Bentonville because I was getting out of the Air Force and, it sounded like a, great place and I came and visited and loved it. And, but I was definitely inspired by seeing what the folks at Up Partners have done with the Up Summit. I don't know how familiar with that you are, but it's a every year summit that happens either in Bentonville or it switches back and forth between here and Dallas, where they showcase next generation mobility technology, and you've got all your flying cars and your eVTOLs and stuff like that. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to participate in that the last 2 years. And just kind of help with that event, and it's always so great, and it's like I would love for Bentonville to be able to become one of those small little like aviation tech hubs,
right?
And if I can play a small role in that when looking back in 20 years or something like that, that'd make me happy. That'd be great. What's funny is that I spend most of my time at Bentonville Municipal Airport because it's just a beautiful airfield, and it was even highlighted at the National Business Aviation Association convention that happened like 2 weeks ago in Los Angeles, where they had a big video, and they even showed Thaden Field in there, and there's been a couple times where I'll be up in the lounge, like on my computer working, and then I'll hear a plane come in and park, and I'll look out the window and like, oh yeah, hey, they're on the platform. And so then like, I'll go outside and I know that tail number, and I look it up in my database. I'm like, yeah, no, I do know that tail number. And so then I like go out and I like introduce myself to the, the person who's flying. And then they just say, wait,
here?
Tyler, like flying company,
Yeah.
like why are you here? I'm like, oh, this is where I am. This is where I live.
Mhm.
They're like, oh, man, whenever I was emailing with you, I always thought you're in like the Bay Area or something like that. I'm like, nope, right here in Bentonville, man. You want to grab a cup of coffee? You know, like,
No, that's awesome. So you say you want Bentonville to maybe potentially get to be an aviation hub in the next couple of years, however long. What do you think it takes to get there? And you might not know the answer to that. I'm just curious.
No, I mean, one of the things that's what's interesting about aviation is that there's definitely like I don't know, I'm going to say lack, but like, for lack of a better term, lack. We'll use lack. I would say that there's like a lack of, like venture dollars going to aviation tech, like especially like general aviation tech. Pardon me. And I feel like that's, it's reasonable, like, because when you're just looking at like a total addressable market or something like that, like it is relatively small, compared to where venture dollars typically go to, right? But aviation is this interesting industry, right? Where like the planes that are being manufactured now are the most sophisticated things that, have ever flown, right? But then this whole ecosystem that supports aviation is oftentimes like 30 years behind, right? And like you're seeing that on national news, nowadays, unfortunately, for very bad reasons, right? When planes crashing and stuff like that. And then it highlights like deficiencies in, air traffic control technology and everything. And so, I think that like, it's only a matter of time, right? Before like people see like the need in the industry and start, putting more money towards investing in, technologies in aviation. And, the folks at Up Partners are leading the charge with that. And they're doing amazing work with like putting good like venture dollars towards like really remarkable businesses.
Yeah. Now that's an interesting perspective, because now that I think about it, like you don't see a lot of whole tech upgrades when it comes to the planes.
Yeah.
Where you get new features and every single model of every car every year.
Yeah.
Where it's not the same with planes, I imagine. What we need to do, we need to get Walmart execs to start flying in Walmart partners via private plane more and more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you definitely do have a significant amount of traffic going into Rogers with all the companies that do business at Walmart who go flying there. But they also, like, Rogers has really good prices on fuel, so that's also a large part of that. Yeah.
Well, you guys have been in business almost 3 years. Let's take a look in the future. I know you said you're trying to figure out where your product market fit is. What does the next 5 years look like for the flying company?
Man, we do have a lot of ideas, a lot of things we want to move into. In the short term, we're still only supporting, Pilatus and Citation, jet aircraft. And so being able to move into all the other, big, aircraft manufacturers, Embraer and Gulfstream and Bombardier and everything. So that is like our short-term goal, right? After that, moving into, full-time staffing, would make sense as well. Like once you've got a big database of pilots, then, logically, like you can help people find full-time jobs, Ultimately, the thing that I would love for the industry is to be able to have this be like a career progression platform, right? So from the time that a student pilot gets their student pilot certificate at 16, right, they're using this to be able to find their first flight instructor, their first flight school. They're using it to find their first full-time job, flying a small plane, and then laterally they're using it to be able to get contract work and that, to be able to build hours, to be able to get the next, full-time job, right? And so from the time that they're 16 to 65, right, like their whole journey, their like professional journey, and being able to kind of like showcase their skills as an aviator is all like through the flying company platform. Yeah. And, it all boils down to, hours is a really terrible metric for judging a pilot. Like you can have a 10,000 hour pilot who is terrible. You can have a 2,000 hour pilot who's great and is really safe. And figuring out how to showcase pilots and move away from like your only worth is how many hours you've actually been sitting there is like one of my goals. Right. And also like that goes into safety as well, right? There's a big safety element here, which I hope to have more to share here soon, but there's a lot of fun things that we're working on that I think will go a long way in order to like improve aviation safety, and starting it as early as like the staffing portion of it.
Yeah, we'll hear about that next time you come on the episode here in a couple of years when we do like a 2-3 year anniversary, whenever that will be. We'll hear about all the safety stuff you're adding. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you guys are doing some really great things. We're excited to see it. So we just took a look into the future a few years. If you could go back into the past, you have a time machine. If you could give younger Tyler a piece of advice, it could be Tyler from yesterday or 20 years ago. What would it be?
Okay. Now, I'm not saying this just to like, talk your guys' book or anything like that. Like I would probably give this answer even if I wasn't on your guys' podcast. But surrounding yourself with people who are working on this kind of stuff, like early is really important, and one of the challenges of being in the military is that like there's a stigma against like having side hustles, right? Like if you're in the military, and you want to like buy some like rental properties and stuff like that, like that's one of those things that's like totally like socially acceptable, right? But if you're in the military and you want to start like a company, and like where you'd actually have to raise money to be able to like, invest in building it. That's like not something that they are cool with, Is
that just because there's a lot of energy, a lot of effort on the side?
Well, yeah. I mean, like they obviously don't want you to like distracted from the mission, right? And so like you actually have to like get special approval from like the JAG and stuff like that to be allowed to do anything like that. And so, I wasn't really able to build that like network when I was in the military, I had some, friends who were like still really good friends of mine today, who like we would talk about this kind of stuff and like ideas and we workshop things and start little side projects and everything. But like it wasn't until I got out that I was really able to dedicate that time to like actually building a professional network of people in startups and doing fun things that, I just didn't have in the military. And so figuring out a way to have done that earlier, I think probably would have gone a really long way.
Yeah. That's great advice. Surround yourself with a good network. Yeah. As early as possible. So, Tyler, if any of our listeners want to learn more about you or the flying company, where can they go?
So LinkedIn is probably the easiest place where I put most of my stuff. Again, I kind of got rid of all my social media like a long time ago.
Right, you're not on Facebook. You already established that.
Yeah. I'm not really on Facebook, but yeah, LinkedIn is the main place. We do have an Instagram account for Flying Company that you can follow along with us there. Putting out some short form content mainly in those two places, interviewing people who are in business aviation, kind of understanding like what they do in their role. But then flyingcompany.com is the website. Then you can find more about what we do.
Cool. We will link. We won't link your Facebook, but we'll link your LinkedIn, your Instagram. We'll put everything in the show notes. So our listeners, go check out Tyler, check out the Flying Company. And as a reminder, follow the Startup Junkies podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, sir.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to share with a friend. Subscribe and review because it matters to us and we want to hear from you. If you're interested in learning how to work with us, check out the information below. See you next week.